A very good morning to all of you. What a joy and privilege to be standing here, and in a while I will tell you exactly why I think it's a real privilege for me. But this Word of God is amazing, and today, through these 17 verses, I hope to be able to draw at least 17 different words for us to use as building blocks for our relationships. Especially the marriage relationship, even if you're single, with the people who are around you, and our relationship with God. In these passages, we really understand that God has laid a banquet before us. In this case, a banquet of words. Every single verse has a word to teach us. And if you think about it, God's word says that His word is like bread upon which we feast. And that is exactly what it is. So let's take a look at this thing. There's really no banquet like love. You know, the entire Bible, it begins with a marriage scene in the book of Genesis in the garden. And then in Revelation, it ends with another marriage scene, a beautiful wedding in another garden. And it's a divine garden, right? But in this book of Song of Songs, it belongs to the category of wisdom poetry. And what is beautiful, it would have traditionally been a song that people sung at weddings or pre-wedding gatherings. And what is amazing here is that in this song, you have kind of a reciprocity. If you see, even while Lois was reading the text, there is a part that the bride says and a part that the bridegroom says, the man, the woman, the man, the woman. There's a reciprocity that is happening. But the other thing is that throughout this book of, Song of Songs, there is a little chase. If you read it, it's beautiful because there is the lovers coming together, then something or the other happens, they get separated, the bridegroom or the man disappears from the vision of the bride, or sometimes it's the bride who's playing hide and seek and the man is searching all over for her, and there is this coming back together and a union. So there is a meeting, a separation, a gathering, a meeting, a separation, a gathering. And therefore, there is this little chase, a lover's chase that happens throughout the book of the Song of Songs. And it's beautiful. It teaches us that even in our lives, love and marriage should never grow stale. There should be this kind of a chasing after one another. And even in our relationship with God, that carries over. There has to be a chasing after one another, chasing after each other's presence, and seeking after that presence and longing before it. And there's a discovery, because in every point, whether they are separated or whether they are together, these lovers have something to discover about the other person. The absence makes the heart fonder in this case. It doesn't make the heart stray, it makes the heart fonder. And they begin to revel in the things about that loved person, that cherished one, that they are missing so much. And when they're together, again, there is this huge burst of, it's not familiarity breeds contempt, but it is like, wow, you are such a precious gift, and this is why I think you're a precious gift. So there's a celebration when they're together, and there is all the beautiful things that they discover about one another in absences and in gatherings or in unions. Now, in the very first verse, so keep your Bibles open because this is amazing and we're really going to feast on it. The first two words that I wanted to leave with you is self-worth and worth. Why? In verse 1 and 2, see here, she says, I'm a rose of Sharon. This is a girl, lady. I'm a rose of Sharon, a lily of the valleys. As a lily among brambles, so is my love among maidens. So first, the woman starts off by saying, I'm a rose of Sharon and a lily of the valleys. Now, let's not quarrel over what kind of flowers those are exactly. It could have well been a hibiscus, and it could have well been the lily of the valley, could have been an Egyptian blue water lily, but that does not matter. What I would like for you to see is her sense of self-worth here. This lady knows who she is. Now, if you go into the valleys or in the mountains, you're going to see a lot of flowers. Has anyone seen a plant, a hibiscus plant, or any plant with just one single flower like that? Of course not. When it blooms everywhere. It's full, it's heavy with blooms and blossoms. Has anyone ever seen just one lotus in a lake or a pond? Of course not. It is just one among many. And she recognizes that. She recognizes the fact that she is one among many beautiful women, one among many roses, one among many lilies of the valley. But here is a sense of worth. She still knows that they are special flowers. They are fragrant, they are beautiful, they are unique in their own special way. And I think this is true of every man and woman. We need to have a proper self-worth before we get into a relationship. I can't tell you how many relationships are ruined because people are too proud of themselves and they think they are God's gift to the other party, or because they have such low self-esteem that they never ever measure up to the other person. They're always so insecure in the relationship that they began comparing themselves with other beautiful girls or good-looking guys or other capable men and women in the workplace. And there is this thing that begins to degrade the relationship, both pride and low self-esteem. But here is a proper sense of self-worth, true humility, a true estimation of oneself. Now, that being said, it is up to the other person to find your uniqueness. And that's exactly what happens, because once she says that, the man comes into the picture and says, "You're a lily among thorns." Now, he doesn't see all the other lilies, he sees her. He sees her and he says, "I don't care about all the other lilies. There are a lot of lilies, but in my eyes, those are thorns. And you are the unique lily in my eyes. It's just one of you in this world." Now, when growing up, I guess my cousins and I, we always think and talk about meeting Mr. Right. And of course, my male cousins will be like, "I'm going to meet Miss Right," or so on. And I've learned through life that there's actually no such thing as a Mr. Right or a Mrs. Right or whatever. The key here is that when you marry someone, you are marrying a very normal person with pros, with cons, with good, with bad. They are not the perfect human being. And it is never the business of yourself to go and try and change that person into the image that you hoped you were marrying, into the kind of person you hoped they would be. It is that person's business to become Mr. Right or Miss Right. It is that person's business to change themselves and make themselves suitable for you. And that comes with self-realization and real love. A lot of times in all our relationships, I'm not talking just about marriage, but in other relationships too, we are trying so hard to change the other party, but we forget to change ourselves. But here is this man, and he sees her, and he doesn't compare her to any other girl that's around. And I'm pretty sure if he really looked, there would be many other beautiful women. If he looked, there's someone else out there who's probably more gifted in cooking and in all the other talents, in housekeeping, in the workplace, with a promotion, with the job title, and maybe even for the girl, she can find 1,000 other men who are better than her husband. But in our relationships, we learn to value the one we are with as the one who is unique, and the reason why we chose to be with them, the reason why we chose to be called family. I know we are born into our families, but we choose to stay in them. We choose to stay in those families. And a relationship is likewise, whether it be a marital relationship, a marriage, a relationship maybe between parents and children, whether it be grandparents and grandchildren, or it's singles and the rest of their family. We choose those relationships, and we need to find the self-worth and the uniqueness in the other party. So here he says, "Lily among thorns," and that is self-worth and worth. Two words from those two verses. Now, if you go to verse 3, here's another beautiful verse. For, here there is reciprocity and presence. And she says, now the girl is saying, "As an apple tree among the trees of the wood, so is my beloved among young men. With great delight I sat in his shadow, and his fruit was sweet to my taste." And this is beautiful because she is reciprocating what he just said. He said, "You're a lily among thorns." And she says, "You know what? I'll tell you, there's no one like you. In fact, I'm going to just miss the entire forest and see the one tree. In a forest full of trees, my beloved man, you are that single apple tree under which I find shade. And she reciprocates that feeling. She reciprocates his uniqueness. It cannot be just one person putting in all the effort in a marriage or in a relationship, even between siblings, for example. There is give and take. They put in, you also put in. They reciprocate, you reciprocate, all right? So hopefully it's the good, not the bad, okay? Do not reciprocate the evil. That is a recipe for disaster. Reciprocate the good in the relationship. Reciprocate what is fitting and what is praiseworthy. And here, she not only has eyes for this one, she actually says she relishes the shade, the shade he provides her with and the fruit. Now, this is very important because it's a presence of the man, the presence of the other, the beloved one that qualifies, that is so important in a relationship. You know, in a lot of relationships, time is a gift that we give the other. And I think that we take this time for granted because when we go into our relationships, there are many things that bother us. Sometimes it's work, very often perhaps it's other responsibilities of the household, and we forget to give time to the other like we did before we got to know each other, when the relationship was still fresh. And when we don't make that time, we try to make up for it. You know, we try to make up for it by many other means. We think buying them something expensive or buying something beautiful would somehow make up for what we did not give, and that was the value of our presence. But for a relationship to work, this shade, this fruit, is the presence of one's life. Without it, there is no shade. There is no way you can stand outside a tree and then say there's a shade. You have to be close together for that shade to be effective. And for that fruit, you need to be able to grasp it in your hand to be able to partake of it. So there is this presence of the other that is so important in a relationship that we need to give each other that presence of our lives. And again, it's not just a marriage relationship I'm talking about every relationship. You don't put time into it, you're not going to get dividends, you're not going to get the fruit of that relationship, and it will not be tasty to you. Now, as she continues, so that's the second word, right? Reciprocity and presence. Trust and covering, and that's verse 4. Verse 4, she says, and this is a BOL, banquet of love, the key verse here. He brought me to the banqueting house, and his banner over me was love. It's beautiful imagery. Now, let me show you what exactly it is. And again, it's her words. She uses a very special word here, a word called degel, which basically means banner, okay? But did you know that this particular word for a banner is used only twice in the entire Bible? And in two places, not twice, but rather in two places. One is the Song of Solomon, and the other place where it is used is in the book of Numbers chapter 2. Now, if you read Numbers chapter 2, it talks about a lot of banners. It talks about the tribes of Israel, and each one is camped in different locations, and they have an insignia on their banner to indicate that this is the tribe of Judah, or Issachar, or Joseph, and so on. And that is the exact word here, because the banner she's referring to is not some random banner. It's a military banner. And what she's talking about is a man has brought his beloved woman into a military camp, okay? And he's in charge there, obviously. He's brought her into that military camp. And here the word for banqueting hall is actually a wine house. Now, you know that people usually do not drink in a military camp, but there would be a celebration in ancient military houses. There would be a place like a mess for the soldiers to gather and to drink wine in celebration of a victory. And usually, I'm not sure about you, but I don't think men would bring their beloved woman into those messes where there's a jolly crowd all getting drunk, okay? But this is the exact imagery that she's painting here. She says, you brought me into your banqueting hall, and your banner over me was love. And that is beautiful because this man has brought her where he usually would hang around with his buddies, you know. And no, don't think I'm going to propagate that. No, I'm not telling ladies that you should start accompanying your man to every buddy party that he has. Nor am I saying, men, you have to bring your beloved along to such places where you are with your friends and you just want to hang out with them. That's not what I'm advocating for. But what I'm saying is that, catch that, she's like a buddy to him. She's like a friend to him. And he trusts her enough to bring her into this place so that she will partake of his victory. She will partake of it. And that to her is significant because it shows her his love. For her, all she can see is not what other sign is on that banner. She knows that that's the mark of his love. The mark of his love is that he's willing to trust her and call her a friend, a friend. And that's beautiful. And that is what is important in relationships, that we continue to treat each other not just as a brother or sister, but as a friend. Sometimes we treat our friends better than our siblings, and that is sad. But think about the kind of friendships we have and how much honor we give those friends, and whether we give that same kind of honor to our spouse or to our sibling or to our parents. And that would be a good landmark of whether that trust is there in that relationship, whether that banner of love has been extended over us and over that relationship. So trust and covering are very essential. Just a covering of love, just a covering of trust that, eloquently mark out one for the other. Now, going on to verse 5 and 6, now there is this beautiful desire because it continues and says, sustain me. Okay, this is interesting because she is saying this. Sustain me with raisins, refresh me with apples, for I am sick with love. Oh, that his left hand were under my head and that his right hand embraced me. Classic, all right? I told you, these lovers are together and suddenly out of the blue they're for some reason separated. Now we have no idea where this guy disappeared, but he's now no longer in her life. And it's interesting because how does she respond in the absences? Or how does a man also have to respond in the absence of the one he loves? How do we respond when the one we cherish is not present, is away on a long trip, is away on a business engagement, or whatever it may be? And there is this continued longing and desire. And what happens here is that she says she's lovesick. She's lovesick, but what are you going to do when you're lovesick? She's asking for nourishing food here. She's asking for, raisin cakes and apples, maybe because she called them an apple tree earlier, all right? But she's calling for apples and raisin cakes. But if you have ever been in the place of love sickness, you know that that is not going to help. The only remedy for love sickness is the presence of the one you love. And that keeps you, and there's this longing deep within this person. There's no true remedy. You can ask for whatever you want, but it is to continue to fan the flame of longing for that person whom you're missing. Not forget that person, not forget them, but to hope for their return. And here, she's even moved into the place where she verbalizes her hopes for when he's back beside her. She longs for the time when they will embrace. She longs for the time when they would just be in each other's arms and forget everything else. And that's a little desire of hers. And to keep this relationship burning in our life, I think there needs to be a continued fanning of the flame during an absence. Fanning of the flame in terms of relationship, in terms of love, in terms of hope, in terms of longing, in terms of desire. And very often we forget to fan the flames. And then when we don't fan the flames, for the one that we are missing, the one who is our cherished beloved, unfortunately, it's a human, fault that we may start fanning the flames for other relationships. No, instead of falling into another adulterous relationship or something like that, keep your focus on the one you love and the one who is not present in your life, away for a short while for whatever reason, or maybe you're away from your wife on a business trip. But watch out for those temptations, watch out for those things. Keep your desire and longing alive for the one you love. Fan that to flame, not looking for another lover. that will not satisfy you. As beautiful or as tasty as it may seem like raisin cakes, it's not the answer to lovesickness. Only the beloved is the answer to lovesickness. So longing and desire. But also, love has to be real and deliberate. This is what the man says now. We are not sure if he has returned, but he's saying something, and let's see what he says in verse 7. He says, I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or the hinds of the field, that you stir not or awaken love until she pleases. And it's very interesting because he tells the daughters of Jerusalem, this is like a choir that he calls out to, and he pretty much makes them swear an oath to him by the gazelles. It's like a kind of a religious, a ritualistic oath. And he's calling them to swear an oath to him. And it's interesting because this is what he makes them swear. He says, do not awaken her. She is asleep. Do not awaken her till she so desires. Do not awaken her love. Do not go and try and use false words, false deeds, false actions to win this person over. He's careful about that. I think a lot of times, even in our marriage relationships, before our marriage, we use all kinds of schemes and plotting. I think it's typical in both Chinese and Indian dramas, right? Or even Korean dramas. There's always a scheme or a plot to win the heart of the guy or the girl. And of course, they get married and then they separate the true lovers. And then later, there's a whole lot of regret and fights and quarrels. If only we learn our lesson. Love is something that must happen naturally, organically, all right? It cannot be forced upon someone. We cannot try and separate them from someone they are with to get their love for ourselves. It's not going to work that way because sooner than we can imagine, that kind of love is going to die a terrible death. It's going to go through a lot of agony. And if you really cherish the person you love, the best thing you can do is to set them free. Set them free to make their own choice, because that's how God treats us, and that's how we treat one another. Give them the choice to reciprocate love, to be honest, to be real, and to be deliberate in the choices they make when they pledge their heart to us. And just as we want to be honest with them, just as we want to be real and very deliberate in the things that we do. So that reciprocity, again, should be their honesty in the relationship that builds that trust, not trying to force that love out of someone, because it cannot be forced. The more we try to force love out of someone, the quicker we will lose it, actually. So be very careful whether it is a spouse, whether it's a child, whether it's a parent, whether it's a sibling, whether it's a friend. Be careful that every interaction is authentic, not forced, not manipulated in any way. Do not fall into that sin of manipulating someone to like you. It doesn't work. They will see through the scheme later, but it's going to be painful, a painful discovery. So real and deliberate. Now in verses 8 to 17, it's beautiful because here is an unpacking, all right? And what happens in that unpacking are a couple of invitations and a warning. A couple of invitations that we can learn from, as well as a warning. And what happens in that is this. Let's read through that. Now, the voice, in verse 8 onwards, the voice of the beloved. Behold, he comes, leaping upon the mountains, bounding over the hills. Now, you will observe here in verse 8 and 9, and later on in verse 17, there's a repetition of the word gazelle or young stag. What happens here is it's an inclusio, and it's not inclusion, sorry, there's a typo there. It's an inclusio, I-N-C-L-U-S-I-O, meaning it's like a bookend. The use of this repetitive word, gazelle or young stag, gazelle and young stag, it is like a bookend which holds the center in part. And in this center is the meat, and that is the two invitations and the warning for love. Now, what happens here? Let us see. The first one, we go and we see verse 8 and 9, both the woman and the man's talking here. Verse 8 and 9 describe his haste. Now, first, she is describing that after all that waiting, finally she beholds him. He is rushing to her. And he's like this gazelle or stag in his voice, in his speed, in his actions. Everything is his desire to come be with her. You see that? And that is something that, love is not silent. Maybe in our cultures, we have been taught not to be too expressive. But if love has to be fanned to flame, if a relationship has to grow, then that love needs to be expressed in the voice, in the words we use, in the attitude that we express, in our speed, in our action, in how we treat the one that we claim to love. Right? And it needs to be seen. It needs to be heard for the person who is our beloved to have that assurance that we truly love them. And here, he also lingers outside her house. It's not a peeping Tom, but rather his desire to see her, catch a little glimpse of her. It's like those times, I still remember when I was in my teens or something, late teens and mid-teens, my best friend, she had a massive crush on someone. And she would always wait and wait and wait and wait. And she will keep pulling me and say, come, let's go and walk around. She had a crush on this guy. And she was like, walk with me. And I don't know, I lost count of how many times we walk up and down and up and down and round that house. I think I got a lot of cardio just from that, And it was just her desire to just see. And the funny part is the moment the guy comes out of the door, she's all shy and red like a tomato, and she's like, can we go go away fast before he sees me. It's this kind of crush thing that happens, right? Where you really long to just catch a glimpse of that person you love. And it's beautiful and it's funny, but it's something that we should nurture in our relationship. We are looking forward to meeting that person. And even after work, instead of coming with a grumpy face, or instead of you waiting at your home and being very upset that your loved one is late, imagine if they open the door and then both of you look at each other like, you've been waiting to look into this person's eyes. It will really change, Instead of coming home and seeing one droopy dog with all the scowl and the annoyed look on the face, sure kills the appetite and the mood, all right? So maybe have that smile, maybe give that expression of love and say, wow, when you're finally here, I thought you will be late for dinner, but am I glad to see you, Do it your way, do it the way that your spouse likes it. But greet that person, greet your children, greet them all in your parting, in your returning, relish it. And let them know that it's a joy for them to return. Their return was very much looked forward to. All right? So, and then he goes on, and here's now the man, all right? He gives his first invitation. And he says in verse 10, my beloved speaks to me and says to me, arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. For lo, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone, the flowers appear on the earth, the time of singing has come, and the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. The fig tree puts forth its figs, and the vines are in blossom, and they give forth fragrance. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. O my dove, in the clefts of the rock, in the covert of the cliff, let me see your face. Let me hear your voice, for your voice is sweet and your face is comely. So I'll pause there, because he gives a couple of invitations, and in his first invitation he says, arise. Now the Hebrew word here that is used for the word arise is literally to get up, to come. Get up, come, and come towards a person. So he's calling this girl and he's saying, come, arise. And not just come, but come away with me. So that's his first invitation. And love is that kind of invitation. There are many things that distract us, many things that disturb us, and we got to be intentional to get up deliberately and walk away from those things with the one we love. Call it a date or whatever, but make time again for one another, to walk away from the things that hold us back and spend time one with the other. And come away with me, he says, and he continues, and he says, he uses a beautiful allusion where winter has passed and the springtime is here. Winter, of course, is a harsh time, but spring would be a time of liveliness, a time of love. And he says here, look, winter has passed, springtime has come. And this is beautiful because it also talks about a relationship that has weathered the storms. They have been together through the winter. They have weathered the winter together. Many of us, during the winters of our relationship, because every relationship goes through seasons, right? It goes through ups and downs. When we go through those winters, there's a lot of strain on us for whatever reasons, and we choose to walk away from one another. But the key over here is stick together during the harsh times, and when spring comes, arise and move together. Stick together, don't do too much during a harsh time, just stick together. All your energy should not be towards, handling the situation. Put your efforts, put your energy, put your time into staying together as close as possible when winter is upon your relationships. But when springtime has come, then there's a time you can move, you can gather resources, you can do things to rebuild your home, to refresh yourselves. But winter is not the time to be focusing on those things. It's already winter, it's harsh time. What are you going to go and get from outside? It's not the time to go out and get things and try and rebuild your relationship at that time. You should be putting energy into just staying together at that time. And once winter has passed, because it will pass, if you're patient, it will pass, then you can focus on rebuilding your life, your family, your home, your resources which were lost for whatever reasons. That is an important lesson to learn. His second invitation, again, he repeats it. He says it one more time. Come and walk away with me. Arise, my love. Arise and come walk with me. Come away with me. And finally, he gives us this image of a dove, right? And you've seen the dove. It's interesting because these doves go and hide in the rock like that, high up in the cliffs. And we have to ask the question, where is he asking her to come? He's saying, come away to the clefts of the rock, the secret places. Let us go away into a place of hiding during this time. Let us not expose ourselves to any more of the harshness around us. Now is the time to go into the secret places and be covered there. And then he continues and he says, for what purpose? That I may relish you, I may see the beauty of your face, that I may hear your voice during this harsh winter, before spring comes. Let me just relish you one more time. Let me relish you, because we do not know what tomorrow will bring. But now we are here together in the cleft of the rock, hidden. Let us hear one another's voice. Let us see one another. And that is something that we have to learn to speak to each other, to the ones we love. Let us find that value in them during the harsh times. During the harsh times is when we throw all the criticism, right? Why you never do this? Why you never did that? If you'd done this, this would not have happened. No. Now is the time to say, do you know you're a strong person? I've always seen your strength. And together with your strength and with my wisdom, we can walk through this together. Now is the time to pick up on those praises. Now is the time for you to, just encourage that person, not criticize them during the winters of your life, during the harsh periods. And for what purpose? Of course, if you look at Exodus 33, verse 22, you're going to see something similar, right? You're going to see Moses, and he is standing there, and he's asking to see the face of God, but God hides him in the cleft of the rock, and he only hears the sound of his passing. But imagine that we have a relationship that God has given us, and in that relationship we are called to behold one another face to face. Behold the face, behold the voice of the one that we love. What a privilege it is that we can hide in that cleft of the rock and be given such privilege to experience God's love in and through someone so close to us. Now that is a true privilege. And he tells us a warning. I mean, this is the chorus, all right, the entire chorus of the Daughters of Jerusalem, and they are singing, and they say, yes, catch us those little foxes that spoiled the vineyard. Now, I like foxes, but foxes are destructive in general to farmlands and to other things. You know what? A dove would usually go to a vineyard. Doves do eat grapes, though in moderation, but a dove would go to the vineyard for grapes. And here you have a fox there, which is predatory. You know, fox, if it sees a dove, is going to pounce. And not only that, the fox is also eating the grapes that the dove would likely enjoy feeding on. And here is a warning that we have to watch those little foxes that enter and destroy the things that bring us joy, that sustain our relationship with our loved one. Watch the things that destroy, the person, and the things that go into building the relationship. Watch it, because grapes is really a joy for the dove to eat. Even in moderation, it's a joy. But there are these little foxes, and without elaborating too much, you know what those little foxes are that enter into your life now and then. Catch those, nip it in the bud, so that they do not pose a relationship risk. And they don't pose a relationship to the ones you love. Nip it in the bud if you really love them. All right? And this verse 16 and 17 is amazing, because she says here, "My beloved is mine and I am his. He pastures his flock among the lilies until the day breaks and the shadows flee. Turn, my beloved. Be like a gazelle or a young stag upon a rugged mountain." And this is beautiful. Why? Because the picture she paints here is that of a covenant exchange. She says, "My beloved is mine and I am his." And that is a relationship. That's a relationship calling, because when we make a vow to someone we love, we say this, same the way that God said it. We say, "All that is yours is mine, and all that is mine is yours. I am yours, you are mine." That is why. And if we say that, and those are the words that God speaks over us, there is this divine exchange of life and of love. If we say that, then the same is said to those we love. We exchange life, we exchange love with them, because that's what is the foundation of every relationship. And how do we know this? Because she asks him to be like a gazelle or stag on the mountains of Bether. Now, Bether, I'm not sure if there's really a mountain range like that, but what we do know is that that word Bether means the dissecting of an animal into two equal halves. Now, when covenants were made, they would cut an animal in two and put one half of the animal here and the other half there, and one half of the animal here and one half on the other side. And the blood would flow in the center like a little stream. Now, that place meets in the valley of, where the blood flows, unites. It is really this place between the two mountains. And it is a place that a stag or a gazelle can run through. A gazelle can go on the mountain and into the valley. And in all the highs and lows of the relationship, there is this binding together, a covenant being made between the two lovers, between the two people. And in that covenant is a divine exchange. Now, let me share with you what happened in my own life. When I was young, I would climb. I love climbing, all right? So I was used to climbing the second, almost now up to the third story, tiles. We had tiled roofs, like the sloping ones, old style ones. My cousin brothers always climbed up there, and I used to climb up with them. And in the night, just lie down on those tiles in the cool of the night and watch for shooting stars. Just watch for shooting stars. And, I often did that even when my cousins were not around, just climb onto the roof and see this. And I remember distinctly, once when I saw the shooting star, someone said, "You should wish upon a star." So I was like, "Oh God, I just wish I can see you. I just wish I can see you." And at that point, I was still in primary school, I'm 10 or below, and I remember that the still small voice speaking to me and saying, "Through every circumstance in your life, you will see me, Priscilla. You will see me." Now, of course, I did not understand what God meant by that, but through all the highs and lows of our relationship, of my life, and my running away from God and my returning to Him, through people coming into my life and people exiting it, whether it be friends or family, through life, through death, I have found out that there is one constant. and that is God. God has always been there. He's never entered and left. He's just always been there, whether I saw him or not. And the amazing thing is that I've out of this thing, I've started to give him this term of endearment. Okay, my term of endearment for God is my one constant. I just call him my one constant because he's the one person who's constant in my life. And this happened recently in Penang, that again, I saw God's faithfulness. His life exchanged for mine. Because I'm a person who loves mountain, I like to go trekking, and I love to go trail cycling. Anyway, so I'm pretty used to difficult trails, but I went with my Solomon, who is my husband, and this was his first time, very first time. So we went to Penang and we took this little boat to Turtle Beach, and we enjoyed the beach there, and then we were going to trek. When I sensed in my spirit, just seeing that trail, that it's going to be a tough one. And I told him, I think we shouldn't go. Why don't we just go back to the guardhouse and call, the boat to pick us back? And he said, no, we've already paid for it. This is the first time. Let's go. So I said, you sure? Are you sure? Yes, I'm very sure. Okay, fine. So we went in there. I think, again, somewhere in between, somewhere a little bit I stopped again and said, are you sure? It's not too late. We can still turn around. I said, no, go. I said, okay. Then third time again I asked, go, fine. Almost 30 minutes into the trip, in there, in that forested area, it's not a proper trail at all, okay? It's really a very difficult trail with nothing to really hold on to, with highs and lows. Some place there's no path, with slush and all kinds of things. You have to hold on to tree roots and branches. Anyway, it started to rain. Hallelujah, right? Just when you don't want things to get better, it gets worse. So it started to rain over there. And there was one particularly very steep area, and I navigated it and I got down. So I navigated that step and I was about to go away when Solomon got stuck on that one because he didn't know how to put his leg down or how to position his body to navigate it safely. So he was holding the stick and he said, Pris, can you turn around and give me a hand because I need to get down? So I was like, okay, now that's number one mistake, all right? You got to be pretty dependent on yourself when you're doing this. But I turned around, and where I was standing was very slushy with sand and moss, and I turned to help him, and I held the stick. And I guess he also didn't realize that the weight he was putting in trying to navigate that step, and I don't know what happened next. All I know is I too lost my footing, and he too lost his footing. We both tumbled, okay? And the next thing, his haversack caught. I think he says that after about 3 steps, his haversack caught something, and he stopped and he sat down. He sprained his ankle, but he sat down. But to his horror, he saw me continuing to roll down. Okay, it must have been hilarious, but I knew my world was going around like I was in a washing machine, and I couldn't stop it. And I was trying to, but I couldn't. And down I rolled. Now this is something that Solomon says, okay? Solomon said, so the steps were continuing. If I had gone down the right path from where I'm standing, then it would have been a lot of steps. It's just too many steps. Confirmed, I would have got very severe injuries and fractures. And the thing was, I was rolling straight down, and straight down there was this massive rock with a very sharp end pointing and jutting outwards. My head was heading for it. And there was Solomon, and I heard him screaming because he's sitting on that step and he's yelling, Pris! And he said that at that moment, he was literally in shock because he was so certain my head was going to hit that rock and split open. I'm going to split my skull open and die right there, okay? And he said the next thing that happened, he cannot understand it. He says that though my head was towards that rock, suddenly it was everything in slow motion. I was no longer going as fast down as before. The momentum slowed down. It was like watching things in, I don't know what, some weird movie, but slow motion. And he said a very unnatural thing happened. My body was moved 100 degrees, like someone very strong moved my entire body 180 degrees. 180 degrees. So that now my head was on the other side and my leg where the rock was. And the next thing I knew is I tumbled into the forest stream. And when I tumbled into that forest stream, it was so refreshing, I did not want to get up, okay? But I quickly got up and washed myself, got his hand washed. He had bruises a little bit. I was concerned because he has diabetes. And then I was like, oh, wow. And he was like, oh, wow, there's a lot of blood on you now because there was a lot of blood. Something had gone through and through my lip. And I chipped my tooth and cracked a few teeth. Thankfully, they are craze marks, superficial. But this part of my face swelled up like crazy and almost, just shut this eye down. And I had cuts all around, over my eyebrow and here, a huge hematoma that came up, blood just pouring from the thing that went through my lip, whatever it was. So there was a cut on the lip and all this kind of stuff that was happening. And I tell you, by right, I don't know how, it is only God who first of all saved me from that rock. Okay, and Solomon witnessed it firsthand, the unnatural movement. The second thing is, after that, because there's no phone signal in that forest area, okay? There's no signal at all. Do you know that God gave me the strength to hike for another 2 hours through rugged, horrible terrain while helping Solomon? He had sprained his ankle, so it was painful. Thankfully, no ligament tear or anything. But I dislocated my shoulder. So my collarbone popped out from the shoulder blade, and with this bleeding and the one side of my face, the eye no longer able to see through that at that point. God gave me the strength to help him make it through the next 2 hours because we were going slow, and we came here. Long story short, when I came back, we came back here to Singapore. Solomon was by then okay. I went into the doctor and checked, and I was just telling because Pastor was so concerned. And the 4 doctors in the poly and in SGH A&E, 4 doctors said, Pris, it's very bad. You have an orbital fracture because it was really swollen, and they saw it in the scans and the X-rays. And they said there is an orbital fracture. And the guy who was in the A&E and also in charge of plastics told that I should go for a CT scan. And amazingly, after waiting for over 5 hours in that A&E, which is considered short, when the CT scan came, so the same person, the doctor, now says there is no fracture. Thank God for that. Thank God, there's no surgery needed. No surgery, because I was like, if I'm going to do that surgery, then how am I going to handle the Banquet of Love drama or preaching today or anything? But God was so good that he healed it then and there and restored it. And immediately after that, no one had signed up for the drama, by the way, for Banquet of Love. He's looking at all of you. But thank God, because every single person who came up to act after that, I approached them, every single one of them, beautiful gift of God to me. Not only the actors, but those who are preparing the props, the narrators, everyone, all the things that they have doing is a labor of love. And it's God's love poured out in and through us for everyone who's going to experience a banquet of love today. That's his doing. All of this is his doing. So really, between the marriage in the Garden of Eden and in the marriage in the book of Revelation, until God says it's time, you are not going anywhere. You're going to stay put in this world. You don't have to be afraid of anything or anxious. Only when God decides it's time to go home, it's time to go home. Don't be afraid. And if it's time to go home, no power on earth can hold you back. But if it's not time to go home, no power in hell can take that life from you. Nothing. So I'm going to leave these words with you. Just take a look at it, because we're praying here. And think about the words that apply to your life. And ask God at this point in time to maybe, I mean, if you see that it is self-worth that is lacking, or if it is worth, or if it is guarding against the little foxes, then just ask God to come into your life and to restore your relationship with your loved one. It may be a spouse, it may be a family member, your children, your parents, maybe even a friend, but just ask God and speak these words into those relationships. So I'm just going to give you some time, and then you can close your eyes, you can start praying, and I will just ask the Lord to step in as well. Let's just take a moment. Lord, we truly thank you for your love. We thank you that you have said that your life has been given in exchange for ours. That, Lord, your love has restored us and preserved us. And I pray that that same love that we've experienced with you will be the love that we cherish in the relationships that we hold dear to our hearts. I pray for relationships that may be broken here, that, Lord, you speak breath and life into the relationships that matter, that are holding even by a thin red thread. I pray that, Lord, you will flourish those relationships once again. Fan to flame the love that is there between husbands and wives. Fan to flame the honor and the respect and the love between parents and children, between siblings, between friends. Lord, we pray that in all these relationships, it will be love that is being perfected in a world that has forgotten how to love. So once again, we thank you, Lord. Hear our prayers. In Jesus' name.